Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, February 5th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about how President Joe Biden and his administration could turn the 2022 United States midterm elections into a blue wave year, a referendum against former President Trump. Now, I know this seems far-fetched. It seems as if this is something that would only happen when the Democratic Party would be in the popularity, favorable view of the American citizen, but, looking at everything that's evolved over the past few months, President Trump has still held a very strong influence on the Republican Party, enough so that possibly in 2022, it could be a referendum against President Trump. And Joe Biden also is going to be enjoying a number of things that President Trump, President Obama, President Bush, and President Clinton did not. We would likely see a full economic recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic, a global pandemic that has occurred once in a century. Something that has pretty much taken over the entire United States, plagued it quite literally. And this puts President Biden in a very difficult position because if he doesn't make it better, he will see a very immediate electoral consequence. But so far, so good. The American public is 10% vaccinated, 11%, 10.6%, so I'm rounding up, 11% of people have gotten the first dosage of the vaccination, so that's either Pfizer or Moderna, which pretty much just means that even with the first dose, that covers roughly 80 to 85% protection against COVID-19. And of course, in about 3 weeks or so, we should see the second dose for whoever currently just got the first dose yesterday or the day before. So roughly 35 million people in this country have gotten the first dosage of the vaccine. That is nearly 11%. That is very good, considering we were at a very horrible position and we still are seeing cases rise every single day. We actually just saw a decrease in cases per day in nursing homes. So that is a good sign that these vaccines are going to do well. They're going to do us justice. They are going to help the United States enter into a pathway of recovery. And this could help President Biden. Because the thing about other election years, other midterm election years, is that these presidents faced the simple, traditional type of midterm year. They become unpopular. They do things. They push things through a legislation. The Republicans had a trifecta from 2016 to 2018. Right around November of 2018, Donald Trump's approval rating did not improve. In fact, it was a 52.6% disapproval rating and a 42.2% approval rating. It's actually higher than where it was in most points of Trump's presidency. But that was still an 11-point deficit, or a 10.4% deficit between those who disapprove of Trump and approve of him. The same thing happened to Obama, though it wasn't as bad. This is President Bush. We'll get there in a moment. President Obama back in 2010. This was an abysmal midterm for the Democratic Party. Disapproved, plus 5 points. Now, in President Bush's first term, of course, we all know the very tragic event of 9/11. And, not to try to even remotely politicize it, but it did boost President Bush's approval rating, which is why this was an anomaly. The Republican Party actually gained seats because George Bush was not an unpopular president by 2002. But by 2006, he absolutely was. In November of 2006, President Bush had a 55.4% disapproval rating and a 39% approval rating. At this point in time, the Democrats won back control of the House and control of the Senate. So traditionally, what you see is that in midterm election years, where the president is unpopular, there's a referendum against them. There are very few years where presidents can gain seats in the midterms. Bill Clinton did it in 1998. George Bush did it in 2002. But if you're looking at the midterm elections, for decades, it had always gone to a point where Democrats or Republicans would lose seats because they are in the incumbent party. Since 1900 began, there's only been a few instances, once, where the Republican Party or the Democratic Party gained seats being the incumbent party. I see it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. 4 times in a century. More than that. Because if you take out 2000, then it's only 3 times. In an entire century where an incumbent party gained seats in the House. And the House is a much better way to gauge whether or not there's a referendum against the president because all 435 seats are up. In Senate elections, roughly 30 to 35 seats are up, so it's only 1/3, and sometimes major states are left out. The Democrats won the popular vote in the Senate elections in 2018 by 20 percentage points, but still lost seats. It wasn't as if the Senate, it was just because of the fact that the Senate seat up in California was there, so millions upon millions of votes were counted there, and they were being compared to other states such as North Dakota and Montana, which also had Senate elections in 2018. But the Democrats won back control of the House. They got 240 seats, a net loss of 40 for the GOP. This is something that the Democratic Party is dreading, because not only, does history tell us that there are very few times in the past century where the incumbent party has gained seats in the House of Representatives, but they also could be immediately redistricted out of gaining seats in the United States House of Representatives because the Republicans have control of the majority of the states. The 2020 House election results left the Democrats with one of the narrowest majorities we've seen for either political party in over a decade. I mean, the Democratic Party being at 222 to 212 leaves no room for vacancies, no room for absolutely anything for the Democratic Party to gain seats, have appointments, whatever it might be. The Republican Party is just a few seats away from being in the majority. Before, it was not the case. There was a 35-seat deficit between the Republicans and the Democrats. Now, it's only 10, and the Democrats are only 4 seats ahead of the majority. So looking at 2020, the Democratic Party is very worried about what might evolve in 2022. We haven't seen any generic ballot polling data yet. That's something that will likely start up within the next few months. But overall, it is going to determine whether or not the Democrats can maintain their trifecta or lose it. And history tells us that they are going to lose it, but we haven't really seen too many elections where we see the eradication of a global pandemic. Joe Biden has roughly a year and 9 months to get this underway in order to see a positive approval rating by the time we reach the midterm elections. And this video is about how the Democrats could turn it into an anti-Trump year, or more so a pro-Democratic year, and that would be solely through Joe Biden. Because he made a promise to the American people. He made a promise that 100 million shots would be administered in the first 100 days of his presidency. What does that exactly mean? Well, it means that 100 million first doses will be done by the time he reaches 100 days. 100 days is roughly 3 months. So he has a pretty long ways to go. I mean, we're talking end of April, the time we reach 100 days. I think maybe exactly end of April or one day into March. But so far, Joe Biden's vaccine administration through the Biden administration is going okay. So far, 35 million Americans have been vaccinated. Now, this started off on his first day with 20 million, which means 15 million people have gotten vaccinated, or the first dosage of the shot, within his first 2 weeks as president. I think we're on 2 weeks and 2 days now. So if he's able to continue at this pace, it's possible Democrats could end up being in the positive because they kept this promise. But there are days where the Biden administration certainly is lacking, and I understand that it largely has to do with state governments. But there were dips, significant dips. On January 29th, 1.55 million people were vaccinated, or first dose. When I say vaccinated, I mean first dose. It's easier to say than just got the first dose, right? So 1.55 million people vaccinated with the first shot. Then it drops down to 825,000, still pretty good, still on track, can be counteracted by the other days with over 1 million shots done. But then it dips down to 355,000. Okay, maybe it's a fluke day. Jumps up to 915,000. Okay, back on track. 751,000, slight dip, but still nearly 1 million doses. But then it dips down to February 3rd with only 105,000 doses. Now, I understand that the snowstorm that has pretty much covered the Midwest, covered the northeastern part of the United States, which actually has a lot of doses. I mean, it makes sense. A very large amount of people here, very large population, and major cities were shut down due to the weather. But this is something that definitely has slowed down the vaccine rollout, and it was something that was reported by the mainstream media. So this could actually hinder President Joe Biden. But if he does pass this 100 million, mark by his first 100 days, that will be campaign promise number one. That was probably the most important things in the minds of a lot of American citizens, besides the economy. And in turn, with more people getting vaccinated, America can start to open up to where it was, quote unquote, normally, where it was before COVID-19. We could see the reopening of shopping malls in areas that have seen only 20, 40% capacity. Now it could open up to 60, 70, 80, possibly 100%, given how much percent of the population is vaccinated, or allow people to spend money and go to shopping malls at their own risk. People have that freedom now, but there certainly are precautions that were not there before COVID-19. And I think that as America starts to open up, the economy is going to be on the up and up. President Biden's approval rating is going to be on the up and up. The amount of people vaccinated is going to get up higher than it was before. If we reach that 100 million mark, roughly 1 in 3 of every Americans will have been vaccinated. 3 weeks after that, completely vaccinated. That is very good for the American public. It doesn't matter who is president. That is something to applaud. And that is going to help Joe Biden. Because as we start to see the eradication of this global pandemic, his approval rating may not take a dip. The thing about those previous years is that under President Trump, this was a normal type of election wave. This was something that was expected. This was historically proven. We knew Donald Trump was going to lose seats in the House. The Republican Party, at least, was going to lose seats in the House in 2018. In 2014, we knew it. In 2010, we knew it. In 2006, we knew it, because that's what history told us. Through 1900 through 2000, only 3 times did a president ever gain seats in a midterm in the House of Representatives. Only 3 times in 100 years. These midterm elections occur every 4 years, just as often as presidential elections. So looking at the results then, one would assume President Biden would receive the exact same treatment from the American people. But the thing is, this one-in-a-century pandemic has really brought a strong group of people together in this country. I mean, while there are differences about how we are handling the COVID-19 pandemic, every American has been impacted by it. Even if you don't think COVID-19 is, that serious of a threat, if you think that America should be opened up to where it was before, and let's say Joe Biden does that, that's going to increase your view of President Biden, regardless if you think COVID-19 is a serious threat or not. Now, most people know the very severity of COVID-19, that it is something that is deadly, that has killed over 400,000 American citizens, a million plus people nationwide, not nationwide, internationally. It is a pandemic. It is something that has been very bad for our country, completely changed the way that the election process was held, completely changed the way that we live our daily lives. And if we see that gone under President Biden, he is going to get an approval bump. It doesn't matter what they try to do with the Democratic trifecta, it will bump his approval rating. And that's why in 2022, he could actually see an improvement in the House, possibly, and also in the Senate. And here's the thing. People pointed out that in 2018, the Republican Party gained seats in the United States Senate. And we'll talk about why very briefly and then go into the 2022 Senate election map. Well, based off the 2016 election results, I would be shocked. I would have been shocked if the Republicans did not gain seats. Before, I thought the Democratic Party would have an okay shot at winning their seats, but states just became too polarized to end up going back to the Democratic Party to reelect them for another 6-year term. But here I am, characterizing all of the states that Donald Trump won in the 2016 election on the 2018 Senate map, and what does this show you? This gives the Democrats just 40 seats, the Republicans at 60. Practically a supermajority, given that the Senate rules now are accustomed for 60 votes. Practically a supermajority, with just the states that Donald Trump won in the 2016 election. Democrats were fighting an uphill battle in 2018. Even if it was a Democratic wave year, they were still defending territory and would need to have won 11 states that Donald Trump carried in 2016. While they were able to carry a number of them, they were able to carry Pennsylvania, they were able to carry Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, West Virginia, Arizona, Montana. That's a lot. That is a lot of states. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 states they were able to take from the GOP column in 2016. They weren't able to get the majority, but the fact that the Republicans were only able to gain 2 actually shows, this map was super beneficial for them. In 2024, if they win the presidency, the Democratic majority in the Senate is absolutely gone. Look at this map. Democrats are going to be defending territory in West Virginia, in Ohio, in Montana, in Arizona, in Nevada, states that are traditionally competitive. Republicans could have a very good year, but in 2018, they didn't have as good of a year as they could have. Like I had showed you, based off 2016, they would have won 60 seats. They only got 53. They lost 7 states Donald Trump carried, including West Virginia, including Montana. States that were very solid for the GOP. Trump won West Virginia by nearly 40 percentage points, and the Democrats were still able to narrowly hold on. Now looking at 2022, the thing is, this map is much more favorable for the Democratic Party. Since they're in the majority, they don't need to gain any Republican states. In fact, some of the states that they won, based off their incumbents, it's possible that they're able to hold on to these states. Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and New Hampshire, I could see easily returning back to the Democratic column, especially if President Biden is approved of. On top of that, if he's approved of, we could see the open seat in Pennsylvania go to the Democrats, possibly the open seat in North Carolina, or what could be an open seat in Wisconsin. The Republicans can hold Ohio, can hold Florida, but Democrats could gain seats in 2022. That would have been out of the question previously. If this was a year where Biden had just been elected and the Democrats somehow were able to win Georgia in a runoff election and there was no pandemic, immediately you would assume the Republicans would have already locked down the states that they carried before, flip a few already, and then be on the track to possibly flip Arizona, possibly flip Nevada, New Hampshire, and working on Colorado. Looking at the map now, the Democrats are in a much better position than they were previously. A much better position, because all they need to is just hold on to the states that they won. And they aren't too far out. The states are increasing in minority population: Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. They're increasing with specifically African American and Latino populations. This is Democratic vote. This is what could drive them to victory. There could be hundreds of thousands of new voters in these states by 2022. That could sway the election by 15, 20, 30K votes in a margin of victory for the Democrats, voters that weren't there in 2020 or weren't there in 2018. So looking at these states, I think the Democratic Party could have a very good, Senate performance even without President Biden being popular. And with him being popular, this could turn the Senate map from what would be a Republican immediate pickup, all they need is one seat, to Democrats actually getting a blue wave and gaining seats in the United States Senate, gaining Wisconsin, gaining Pennsylvania, possibly even gaining North Carolina. Looking at the House election results back in 2020, the Democrats are going to need to do a lot of work. Republicans are going to redistrict them out at every step they can get. Every single state, they are going to see the Republican Party redraw the districts. Enough so that Democrats are at a point where they probably will immediately lose the House results unless Joe Biden is popular. Because nothing will bring America together like beating a global pandemic. Nothing brings us together like tragedy. And while that may be unfortunate, it's a very real reality in the United States. The only time we are really unified is during a time of trouble and hardship. We're talking about wartime efforts. We're talking about terrorist attacks. We're talking about now a global pandemic. This is what could bring the country together. And whoever is at the top, regardless of it being a Republican, Democrat, Independent, they will receive the benefit of that. They will see a popularity bump. And that's exactly what could happen for Joe Biden. We have never seen a president in modern history face a global pandemic, one that he inherited through his election and could beat through his first term by the midterm election. This is unprecedented, which is why it's not out of the question for it to be a Democratic wave. 2018, 2014, 2010, 2006 were completely out of the question for being waves for the incumbent party, because that's just not how American politics works. And as much as we do want to return to a sense of normalcy, you cannot ignore the very real pressing threat of the pandemic and what that could do for the American people if it's gone. It will help us all. There is no one that really is hoping the pandemic continues, because it is going to help this country. It's going to help us heal, literally. It's going to, make it safer for us to go about our daily tasks. And there's only one person who will truly be credited for it, and it's due to the fact that he is the incumbent president, and that is President Joe Biden. His approval rating will likely jump up. He's already popular than where Donald Trump was just 17 days into the presidency, but he's lower than Obama. But he's more popular than George Bush. He's more popular than Bill Clinton, more popular than Ronald Reagan. So Joe Biden actually isn't off to too bad of a start. Just 36% of Americans may disapprove of him, but that number significantly could go down because of this pandemic possibly being eradicated. More and more people are starting to get vaccinated. The cumulative shows us that 35 million people have received the first dose of the vaccine, whether that was Pfizer or whether that was Moderna, and possibly soon Johnson & Johnson. People are starting to get vaccinated, and people are starting to be at a point where they can open up and be safe, still with masks, still with social distancing, but something that could return to what used to be our normal. And that could be a benefit for Joe Biden, and that's exactly how the Democrats could take 2022, which historically tells us is going to be a Republican wave year, and turn it into a Democratic wave year. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my post-2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.